With reaction, our two esteemed attorneys. Scott Bolden joins us from Las Vegas, along with Alan Dershowitz in New York. He's the author of the new book, Trumped Up: How the Criminalization of Political Differences Endangers Democracy. Great to see both of you.
Thank you.
All right, Professor Dershowitz, Judge Ellis, you know him well. I know him well. From a long time ago when I was a litigator. He's an incredibly talented judge. He pretty much calls balls and strikes. 77 years old, senior judge on the Eastern District. He just laid into the special counsel's office. He's cantankerous. He's known for that, too. But he laid into him. There was one quote that I especially want to raise here. He said, "I don't see what relationship this indictment has against Manafort with anything the special counsel is authorized to investigate. It's unlikely you're going to persuade me the special counsel has this unfettered power to do whatever he wants."
Look, every criminal lawyer I know, every experienced lawyer has known from the beginning what's going on. They're going after people like Manafort and Flynn and Cohen, not because they have any interest in any of them. They just want to flip them. They want to make them not only sing, but as the judge put it in his statement, maybe even make them compose. You know, I think I came up with that phrase, composing instead of singing. The judge was just saying what we all have known right from the beginning. The only difference between this judge and other judges is this judge is completely and totally honest. He calls it the way he sees it. He's absolutely right. This is what's been going on. The amazing thing is that he called them on it. He said to prosecutors, essentially, you can't do that if you're a special counsel. You have to go after directly the evidence that's within your mandate. You can't be finding people, creating or exaggerating or coming up with crimes, not in order to get those people, but in order to squeeze them and get them to sing and compose. It's about time a judge honestly looked at the situation and assessed it. You and I have been talking about this now for months. We shouldn't be surprised, but it's surprising that and refreshing that a federal judge would say that. It also vindicates one other point I made. Why did Mueller take this case out of Virginia and try to put it in Washington, D.C.? Because he knows that he would get more positive judges, more positive jurors in the District of Columbia than he would get in Virginia. In Virginia, he's going to get judges like this who are straight. In D.C., he's going to get judges and jurors who are much, much more anti-Trump. And so clearly that was judge shopping, jury shopping. When I said that, I was called a racist. I was condemned. Congressmen condemn me. Professors condemn me. But I think this opinion vindicates what I've been saying for a long, long time.
Scott, he has. We do have another aspect of the case that's still in D.C. And I think we might have just lost Scott there. That is in D.C. And,
right.
And when we get him back, let me know. And it's Amy Berman Jackson, Professor Dershowitz, who is a Obama appointee. And so she still hasn't ruled on the motion to dismiss. But these banking transactions go back to 2004 and 2007. And so Dreeben tries to argue today, saying, well, no, this is within the scope of the investigation. And he said, I'll be the judge of that. He's like, I don't think so. I'll be the judge of that. So 2004, 2007, an investigation that began in 2014, Professor, was somehow just looped into the Mueller investigation. It is ridiculous. It's so patently obvious from the very beginning. You were way ahead of the curve on it.
Well, no, and it's so important because what they're doing to these people like Manafort and Flynn and Cohen could happen to any of us. If we happen to be collateral damage, if you know somebody who they're going after, they're going to find something on you. They're going to squeeze you. This is something that has plagued the American justice system for many decades. Look, if they do it to get the mafia, maybe it's understandable. If they do it to get terrorists, maybe it's understandable. But to do it to get an elected president of the United States, somebody who I voted against, but who's the elected president of the United States, to use that tactic, the mafia terrorist tactic of squeezing people and making them testify and making them sing and making them compose, endangers the civil liberties of all Americans.
Let's look at what President Trump said today after he heard about the continuing conversation about whether he should speak to a grand jury or be interviewed by Mueller. He made these comments.
I would love to speak. I would love to go. Nothing I want to do more because we did nothing wrong. I have to find that we're going to be treated fairly because everybody sees it now, and it is a pure witch hunt. If I thought it was fair, I would override my lawyers.
You know, it's so important. Everybody should read my article in today's USA Today because I give advice to the president. I never give it to him directly, but I give it to him through the media. it would be a terrible mistake for him to voluntarily testify unless he has no choice. No prosecutor has ever tried to get somebody to speak to him in order to help that person. You have the person speak to you in order to spring a perjury trap or have them fill gaps. And I have never in 50 years of practice had one of my clients speak to a prosecutor or voluntarily appear in front of a grand jury. He may have to. They may subpoena him, but then he has legal resources. He can fight the subpoena on the grounds that this judge has now apparently ruled, saying that many of the questions are beyond the scope of the mandate of the special counsel. Others are within the privilege of a president not to have to respond and answer why he pardoned, why he fired, why he did this, why he did that. Those are not appropriate questions. So I think there are challenges the president can level at a subpoena. But the one thing he shouldn't do is volunteer to sit down and talk to a prosecutor.
No, it's a
disaster.
Good
ever comes of that.
No, I don't care how people think they're so smart. And Alan, you and I have been around this with witnesses. The more prominent the witness, the more problems in a deposition, because they don't want to hear your advice. They don't want to be coached. They don't want to do moot courting. They want to go and I can handle it. And all of a sudden you're like,
Look at Bill Clinton. Look at Bill Clinton. He got impeached because his lawyer gave him the advice to go and testify about his sex life at a deposition. And he could have settled the case and not testified, but he didn't do that. In that case, he took the advice of his lawyer. He didn't take the advice I gave him on Geraldo on this network not to testify. He made the mistake. And I don't think that President Trump is going to make the mistake of testifying unless he can do it in a controlled setting, a few hours with his lawyer present, limited questions about limited subjects, perhaps written answers. You know, if I were the president's lawyer, I'd take advantage of these 40-something questions, and I'd respond to them in writing and say to the American public, see, I'm not afraid to answer these questions. The only reason they want to now talk to me in person is they want to spring a perjury trap, and there's no justification for using the grand jury to do that.
It's crazy. It would be lunacy. Scott Bolden, we promise it was not a conspiracy to take down your satellite. I promise. I love having you on. You're one of my faves. Your reaction to what's happened today, we can go back to the district court judge in the Eastern District of Virginia, or you can hit any of the issues we've been talking about.
Well, I'm chomping at the bit. In regard to Judge Ellis, having appeared before him a handful of times in the last 5-10 years, I'm not surprised at Judge Ellis's comments, and he was equally hard on not only Mueller, but also equally hard on Manafort's lawyer and his legal team in regard to their head shaking and what have you. But he is a smart judge. I don't disagree with Professor Dershowitz in regard to how the process works, but they shake down drug dealers. They shake down street criminals and what have you. And so, but remember one thing, the judge didn't order. The judge didn't dismiss the indictment. He wants to see the whole memo because he may not trust Mueller, but he didn't render a decision. And so a lot of judges will press both sides and then in the end rule in favor of one that just based on the questioning, you may think that it's not that he's leaning one way, but go the other way. So you got to keep that in mind. He did not issue an order. Secondly, the hearing today was, in my opinion, was really more about whether Mueller, okay, does he have jurisdiction or not? But then the other thing to notice is they had local counsel there from the Eastern District. Yep. And I think if anything, Judge Ellis is going to rule, if he goes this far, to say you can prosecute Manafort if you want, but you got to do it out of the Eastern District. And prosecutors always do forum shopping. Professor Dershowitz is absolutely right. Nobody wants to try a case in front of a D.C. juror because they tend to be more liberal. So they do reach out to Virginia if they can make the case. In regard to the rest of the issues, I'll tell you, the subpoenas and what the House investigators are doing, I'll be honest with you, they really ought to just let the Mueller investigation go forward. This whole corruption piece and picking and choosing and wanting these documents,
heaven forbid we have Congress hold the executive branch accountable. The judge. I mean, they all supposed to keep each other honest. But you guys,
it's an ongoing investigation, though. You don't want them picking through ongoing investigations. There's a lot of inconsistencies.
If the ongoing investigation is a travesty of justice, yes, we do want them to have an ongoing oversight responsibility, and that's how the founders saw it.
There'll be time enough for that at the conclusion of the investigation. You don't want to do it now.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're out of time.
With a Virginia judge questioning the legitimacy of the special counsel investigation into former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, President Trump seized on the news today to discredit the entire Russia probe.
All we hear about is this phony Russia witch hunt. That's all we hear about.
Speaking to the NRA in Texas, President Trump went off topic, citing a Virginia court hearing about his former campaign chairman Paul Manafort, who faces tax fraud and money laundering charges.
Just when I'm walking on the stage, a highly respected judge in Virginia made statements. It says, Wall Street Journal, it says, judge questions Mueller's authority to prosecute Manafort.
Federal Judge T.S. Ellis rebuked Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team, suggesting they lied about the scope of the investigation. You don't really care about Mr. Manafort's bank fraud, Judge Ellis said. You really care about what information Mr. Manafort can give you to lead you to Mr. Trump and an impeachment or prosecution.
How does this have anything to do with the campaign, the judge asked. Let me tell you, folks, we're all fighting battles, but I love fighting these battles. It's really a disgrace. What's happening to our country is a disgrace.
Before heading to Texas, the president took reporters' questions twice, emphasizing that no one wants to talk to Mueller more than he does.
I want to talk to the people in charge if they can prove that it's a fair situation.
At the same time, the president claimed the special counsel legal team is stacked against him.
The problem we have is that you have 13 people, they're all Democrats, and they're real Democrats. They're angry Democrats. And that's not a fair situation.
President Trump also praised Rudy Giuliani, adding the new member of his legal team is on a learning curve.
He started yesterday. He'll get his facts straight.
That appears to be a reference to Giuliani's Fox interviews, where he said President Trump paid lawyer Michael Cohen a retainer, and the money covered Stormy Daniels' non-disclosure agreement.
Funneled through a law firm, and the president repaid it. Oh, I didn't know he did. Yeah.
Before the president took the podium in Texas, Giuliani released a clarifying statement. First, there's no campaign violation. Second, my references to timing were not describing my understanding of the president's knowledge, but instead my understanding of these matters. Third, it is undisputed that the president's dismissal of former Director Comey was clearly within his Article II power. Throughout the day, President Trump singled out the media after two networks incorrectly reported Trump attorney Michael Cohen's calls were listened to by the feds. The president urged reporters to revisit Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein's memo that recommended FBI Director Comey's termination, the catalyst for the special counsel appointment.
Just read it. Put it in the air. Your viewers don't know about it.
Rosenstein said today the long-awaited Inspector General's review of the FBI and Justice Department's handling of the Clinton emails should come in the next few weeks. Sources close to the matter told Fox News the Inspector General's team has continued to receive and pursue new leads, John.
Some other news late this afternoon, a newly released version of the Republican House Intelligence Committee report with less black ink.
Yeah, and the key thing here is a section about former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn. In the unredacted testimony, you see that both Director Comey and his deputy, Andrew McCabe, testified to the committee that they did not see, their agents did not see evidence of deception when they interviewed Michael Flynn about his conversations with the Russian ambassador. So the question is, how did they get from that, no deception, to a guilty plea for lying with the special counsel? And we've got to call into the special counsel tonight to ask if there was new evidence that caused them to bring that case against Flynn based on what we've now seen in this House report.
All right, keep watching that. Catherine Harris, thanks so much.